first time I saw her, I was 6 years old. It was a fleeting glimpse in the smudged glass of our oven door, a ghostly overlay on my reflection. A girl with my eyes, but softer, more real than the boy everyone else saw. Her name was Chloe. I didn't say it out loud, of course. I tucked her away in a secret corner of my heart, a precious and fragile thing I only took out when I was truly alone. For years, my life became a performance, a one-man show titled The Boy Called Daniel. I was the lead actor, and my parents, my friends, the whole world was my audience. I learned my lines, how to stand, how to talk, how to laugh with a certain gruffness that never quite felt natural. I became an expert in masculinity, a scholar of a subject I had no innate understanding of. I played sports, I roughhoused, I let my father call me son and buddy, each word feeling like a tiny invisible stitch, sewing me into a costume I could never take off. The dissonance was a constant, low hum in the background of my life, a static that grew louder with every passing year. Puberty was a special kind of hell. It felt like my body was being hijacked, transforming into a stranger, a traitor. My voice cracked and settled into a register that felt alien. The shadow on my face, the broadening of my shoulders, it all felt like a prison being built around me, brick by brick. I remember staring into the mirror after a haircut my mother insisted on. This short, brutal, masculine cut, and feeling a wave of such profound grief it was all I could do not to scream. The boy in the reflection was a grotesque mask, and I was suffocating behind it. The internet became my sanctuary. In the quiet glow of my laptop, late at night, I found my people. I found words for the nameless ache I'd carried for so long: gender dysphoria, transgender. I read stories of other girls like me, girls who had been assigned the wrong gender at birth. For the first time, I didn't feel like a freak. I felt like I had finally found the map to a country I'd been lost in my whole life. At 18, I moved out for college. It was my great escape. In the anonymity of a new city, Chloe began to tentatively step out of the shadows. I started with small things: shaving my legs, letting my hair grow out, painting my toenails a vibrant red. Each act was a rebellion, a reclamation. Then came the clothes. The first time I wore a dress, a simple, flowy sundress I'd bought online with trembling hands, I stood in front of my dorm room mirror and cried. They weren't tears of sadness, but of overwhelming, soul-deep recognition. There you are. That was the moment I knew I couldn't go back. I couldn't rebury her. I started hormone replacement therapy a few months later. The changes were slow, magical. My skin softened. My body began to redispose itself into curves that felt right. The day a stranger at a coffee shop called me miss, without a moment's hesitation, I floated for a week. I was building a life, my real life, but there was always a dark cloud on the horizon: my parents. I'd been carefully curating my interactions with them, keeping our calls short, sending them old, slightly blurred photos. I knew I had to tell them. The secret was a wall between us, and I missed them desperately. I decided to do it in person. I drove the 3 hours to my hometown, my stomach in knots. I'd practiced what I would say 1,000 times. Mom, Dad, I'm transgender. The person you've always known is still here, but I'm your daughter. My name is Chloe. The words sounded so simple, so clean in my head. Reality was a messy, painful explosion. I sat them down in the living room, the same room where we'd opened Christmas presents and watched family movies. I took a deep breath and began my carefully rehearsed speech. I didn't get past, "I'm transgender." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "No, Daniel, you're not." The sound of my old name was like a physical blow. My father just stared, his face a stony mask of confusion and anger. "What are you talking about?" he boomed, his voice filling the room. "Is this some kind of phase? A college fad?" I tried to explain, my voice trembling. I told them about the lifelong feeling, the dysphoria, the joy I was finally experiencing. I begged them to understand. "You're killing our son," my mother sobbed, her words lacerating my heart. "You're letting some idea destroy the beautiful boy we raised." My father stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I will not call you by a different name. I will not be a part of this delusion. You need help, son. Real help." The word son hung in the air between us, a final, brutal dismissal. I left an hour later, the conversation having spiraled into a vortex of tears, accusations, and painful silence. I drove back to my apartment, crying so hard I had to pull over twice. It was the deepest heartbreak I had ever known. The months that followed were a cold war. Phone calls were strained and infrequent. They sent emails with links to articles about rapid-onset gender dysphoria and detransitioners, desperate to prove I was making a mistake. I stopped responding. I focused on my own healing, on building a chosen family of friends who loved and celebrated me as Chloe. It was painful, but it was also freeing. I was no longer begging for permission to exist. A year passed. I was fully living as myself, and the world saw me as Chloe. The pain of my parents' rejection was a dull ache, a constant companion. Then my grandmother, my mother's mother, passed away. I had to go to the funeral. I was terrified. I put on a simple, respectful black dress and did my makeup subtly. I walked into the funeral home, my heart pounding. I saw my parents across the room. My mother looked up, and our eyes met. I saw a flicker of something not recognition, not yet, but confusion. Then, something shifted. She excused herself from the group she was with and walked towards me. I braced myself for another confrontation. She stopped in front of me, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since I'd come out. "You look," she began, her voice shaky. "You have your grandmother's eyes." It was such a simple, unexpected thing to say. A tear escaped and rolled down my cheek. "I know, Mom," I whispered. She reached out, her hand hovering for a moment before she gently took mine. "It's a beautiful service," she said softly. "Chloe." My name. She said my name. It was quiet, almost hesitant, but it was there. It wasn't a grand reconciliation. There was no sweeping, dramatic embrace, but it was a crack in the ice, a single fragile thread of connection. After the funeral, my father was still distant, but he didn't call me Daniel. He didn't call me anything, which, in its own way, felt like progress. My mother and I started talking again, slowly, tentatively. She asked questions, real ones, not accusations disguised as questions. "When did you know? Are you happy?" The wall was beginning to crumble, brick by painful brick. It's been 2 years since then. The road to rebuilding a relationship with my parents has been long and is still ongoing. My mother is trying. She buys me clothes for my birthday, calls me Chloe, and is slowly learning about the daughter she never knew she had. My father is harder, more set in his ways. But last Christmas, he handed me a present and muttered, "This is for you, Chloe." It was awkward, and he couldn't look me in the eye, but he said it. And that meant everything. My journey wasn't just about changing my body. It was about finding the courage to be seen, even by those who were most afraid to see me. It was about understanding that sometimes the family you're given needs time to catch up to the family you choose, and that the most powerful transformation isn't the one the world sees on the outside, but the one that allows you to finally, authentically come home to yourself.